For the first time in its history, Ukraine has developed a domestic ballistic missile. According to expert forecasts, assessments, and evaluations, its range allows it to reach Moscow and even the entire region, covering most of central Russia and beyond.
Initially, the complex was originally designed to create and develop extended-range missiles capable of effectively hitting targets at distances of 800 kilometers or even more.
What is currently known about Ukrainian ballistics? What targets can it destroy? How many such missiles has Ukraine assembled, and will the Russians be able to shoot them down? This is what we'll discuss today in Arsenal. It has long been said that developments in the missile field have not ceased. Rumors about the existence of Ukrainian ballistics and its use have also leaked to the media. Now, this information has been officially confirmed by President Volodymyr Zelensky.
I thought it was too early to talk about this, but I would like society to appreciate it, especially our people who work around the clock at defense enterprises. The first Ukrainian ballistic missile test was indeed very successful, and I congratulate our defense industry complex on this.
This is where all the official information ends for now. However, several experts have already speculated about what kind of missile this might be and what its characteristics are. Attempts to create ballistic weapons were made by Kyiv long before the war with Russia. Ukrainian engineers have been working on this task almost since the collapse of the Soviet Union.
In fact, in Ukraine, after the 1990s, there was only one complex left in service. This is the Tochka-U complex, which by the 2000s was considered morally obsolete and essentially needed replacement. And in fact, from around the late 1990s to the early 2000s, there was a need to create a new missile complex using ballistic missiles.
During the modernization, the Tochka-U transformed into the Operational Tactical Missile Complex Sapsan, which in recent years was updated, refined, and named Grom-2. According to analysts, it was precisely on the basis of this weapon that Ukrainian ballistics were developed.
As of 2022, the complex Sazak itself was not ready. It did not go into serial production. There were some developments, possibly even a so-called prototype was created. But at the same time, unfortunately, it was not about so-called serial production.
Either there was a lack of funds or the will of the leadership, as in the case with Yanukovych, who blocked the project. In short, it did not go beyond experiments. However, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Ukraine has significantly increased its production of domestic weapons. This also affected the currently most classified missile industry, the pinnacle of which were the developments of the Thunder 2 project.
If we talk about the declared armament, it is most likely referring to the Thunder 2 complex, as this was actually the most thoroughly and meticulously developed project.
It is worth noting that Thunder 2 existed in two versions, an export version with more limited capabilities and a Ukrainian version where engineers tried to maximize the potential of the missile complex, hence the different characteristics found in open sources. But the main question of how far the Ukrainian ballistic missile can travel remains unanswered. During the development stage, the flight range was stated to be several hundred kilometers. However, even then, engineers claimed that it could be increased more than twice.
The basic version involved the development of a so-called missile capable of striking at a distance of up to 300 kilometers and carrying a warhead of about half a ton. That's 500 kilograms. There you go. However, this is a system that was planned for export. The possibility was initially incorporated into the system itself for the development of longer-range missiles capable of hitting targets at distances of 800 kilometers or more.
Missiles for such systems now typically fly at a range of 1,000 to 1,200 kilometers, and considering the close cooperation with our Western partners, it is possible that Ukraine already possesses these technologies. But even with the specifications that were mentioned a few years ago, it can be confidently stated that both Moscow and the entire Moscow region are within the strike zone. However, analysts believe that Ukraine is unlikely to fire at the Kremlin. For now, it is evident that the few ballistic missile samples will most likely be used to destroy Russia's military potential.
The strike could target primarily the critical military infrastructure. First and foremost, these are airfields, aviation bases for both tactical and strategic purposes. Speaking of range, it's about up to 300 kilometers. If we talk about a range of around 500 kilometers, this could include not only airfields, but also more serious targets. For example, military production facilities.
Speaking of production, likely after successful tests, the main task our defense industry is working on is increasing the number of these missiles. How many of them Ukraine has today is, of course, classified information. However, there are probably not very many missiles. The situation will change significantly when the missile goes into mass production.
Now, we understand that there are also so-called security factors that require, for example, the creation of either protected production facilities or actually moving part of the production outside of Ukraine, which can also affect the possibility of such the speed of production. That's it. But in general, when it comes to mass production, it usually takes about 1.5 to 2 years. This is about bringing mass production to planned capacities.
And what can Russia counter against the Ukrainian missile? In words, Russian governors claim to shoot down literally everything that flies over Russian territory. However, fires at Russian refineries after strikes are extinguished for weeks. Once we have ballistic missiles, there will be even more fires in Russia.
We are forced to use a large number of drones simply because we do not have our own missiles, either cruise or ballistic, of medium and long range.
To be fair, it should be noted that Russian air defense is indeed capable of shooting down ballistic missiles. Experts claim that the S-300 or S-400 systems have good potential for this. However, they are still far from the performance of the Ukrainian Patriot SAMP-T or NASAMS.
The interception probability of systems like the S-300 and S-400 generally ranges between 50 to 70%. This means that when launching 3 to 4 missiles, at least 1 or 2 of them will be able to bypass the air defense system and reach the target.
At the same time, it should not be forgotten that most of these air defense systems are engaged in shelling the border regions of Ukraine. However, there is clearly a shortage of them in the Russian rear. Therefore, there will be plenty of work for the Ukrainian missile, which no one will be telling where it can strike and where it cannot. Did you like this video? Then don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to our new Arsenal channel. The link is in the description below the video.